Civilizations around the world have been trading for centuries. Since the domestication of the camel, Arabian nomads controlled long-distance trade from the Far East. During the late 18th century, Native Americans have been involved in the fur trade. As walkers have been wondering for centuries, why do nations trade?
So I'll tell you why nations trade.
Let's take a jump into Chapter 20, International Trade. All around the world we have resources, but in order to use, we need trade forces, uneven distribution feeding these forces, national efficiency for which we strive. Trading is needed to make our country thrive, feeding our children so they stay alive. Some people simply prefer to import, makes resources less likely to fall short, eating strange fruit to make your face contort. Here's an example of how nations benefit from international trade.
Do you often feel weak, scrawny, insufficient to humanity? Well, maybe instead of worrying about your weakliness, try muscle milk! 3 weeks later!
Global output is maximized when countries produce goods at a low opportunity cost. This is America, where we have the comparative advantage in producing Coke. Over in China, they have the comparative advantage in producing ramen. Want to calculate some productivity?
I probably could.
There are 2 ways to calculate productivity. The first way is output over time. The second is the number of inputs that go into making an output. Domestic price differs from global price, as domestic is the cost of a good at home, while global is the cost of a good globally. When the world price is above the domestic price, businesses produce at the higher price, cause a domestic surplus and export. When the world price is below the domestic price, businesses produce at the lower price, cause a domestic shortage, and import. Now, you may be asking yourself, why would we want to protect domestic production?
It doesn't really feel like it's doing a lot. Well, you know, shove it in there, right? Exactly.
Domestic production actually helps out the economy, and free trade could reduce our domestic output. Otherwise, we'd have to worry about government instituting quotas, tariffs, or subsidies. Now prepare yourself for Chapter 21, Exchange Rates. We already know that exports increase demand for domestic currency, creating a supply of foreign currency. Imports increase demand for foreign currency, creating a supply of domestic currency. Trade surpluses and deficits are determined by the balance of payments, which is made up of the sum of all transactions between residents and foreigners. These transactions include the current account, which is made up of goods, services, and interest, the capital account, which is made up of real financial investments, and the official reserves account, where each country has foreign currency in its possession. This money is used to cover deficits and increases during surplus. If one of these 3 is not at equilibrium, the others must compensate.
What happens if she drops it in there? Then I have to drink it.
Flexible exchanges are self-correcting, which eliminates deficits or surpluses, making them unstable, while fixed exchanges are stable, but need constant attention and require economic adjustment. In the U.S., we use the gold standard, where nations define currency and value of gold. Fixed exchange rates, requiring adjustments, ended up breaking down in the 1930s. The Bretton Woods system defined currency by dollar per gold. It kept exchange rates stable with official reserves, selling or borrowing gold. Although fixed, it allowed some flexibility, but it had to be approved by other nations. This system collapsed when the value of the dollar collapsed. After the last system collapsed, we switched to the managed float system, which was flexible, so exchange rates were free to float, and government intervention was allowed to stabilize. So here are just a few things to remember for the exam because to pass, people like to trade goods.
Hey, I'm sorry, you want to do what with it? What?
Trade it.
They're so stupid.
Actually, no, it's beneficial. When goods are moved around, different currencies meet and have to be exchanged. The exchange rates at which this transaction occurs changes as goods move around the world.
I want big waves splashing on my face wherever they go.
Oh, we'll get through. Yeah.
Now we are done.
Yes.